Greetings, hello everyone. Welcome to Connect Africa. So, welcome to our daily session with Kwame Gonza. For today, our topic is we gonna, fly you to Nigeria, and we are going to look at, a lot is happening in the continent, and this one will be. It happened actually before ECOWAS summit. Bola Tinubu has inaugurated an economic team with Aliko Dangote and the CEO and founder of actually the owner also of the United Bank of Africa, Tony Elumelu. Now the team consists of these two people. So that's why as you can see the title now, with this formation of the economic team, will Nigeria rise? Meaning its economy, will it be a solution? All that will be spilled by Kwame. Now, Kwame, first of all, welcome.
Thank you very much, Mahlet, and thank you for having this program. Once again, I want to thank everyone who's on the platform, who's supporting Connect Africa by watching by PayPal accounts. Many people have been supporting by PayPal and other means. We appreciate you, and we want to encourage you, of course, in that direction so that we can be here in serving the continent. We want to be serving the continent. Those media platforms you see out there are supported with a lot of money. If you look at the British media, BBC, the United Kingdom alone is injecting around 600 million pounds into its media. Okay, the government is forking every year 600 million. So they are pumping this in the media. Why do you think they are doing that? Because they want to capture the minds of the Africans in some way. So if we are doing here also some work which is very important for the continent, we don't have anyone currently because our governments, majority of them are captured. So we have only the viewers who are here to support. So any support which you give this platform, Connect Africa, will go a long way, to make our work consistent and be here every day, every single day. So this is very important. So we thank you very much for being part of the journey that we are on of conscientizing our people. By conscientizing, we mean by bringing the knowledge of consciousness, political consciousness specifically, so that people can be aware of the continent they live in and also being aware of the world itself. It is very important. One of the reasons we have been having challenges with preaching the gospel of unifying the African continent is because people are closed into the colonial boundaries, which one of my colleagues, calls colonial enclosures. He normally calls them colonial enclosures. So people get closed in these countries and they don't want to think about what is happening, in Nigeria. You find that somebody is in Kenya and they don't want to think about what is happening in Nigeria. They don't think that they are connected. Someone who is in Nigeria may be over there and he doesn't think that he's connected to the people who are in Kenya. And so this, becomes very difficult. But with our platforms, we try to bridge that gap. We try to close that gap. So whoever you are and you are out there, whether you're in the diaspora, whether you are on the continent itself, we thank you for being part of that journey, but more so support the channel and support us through our PayPal and all the other means. YouTube has a lot of means, chat, whatever it is, Cash App, and all that. So support the channel and help us to be here consistently, like we said. The biggest media platform right now in India is owned by the richest man in India, all right, who is called Adani. And we are talking about First Post, all right, where, the Indian journalist Palki Sharma, who has been viral on the internet, where she's working right now. She's working with the richest man in India, actually the richest man in Asia. So being a media, person or doing the work of a journalist, which we are doing currently, even though some of us are not professional journalists, it takes resources and it takes a lot of commitment. So that is why we are asking you to, first of all, take some time to support Connect Africa and what it is doing. It is a gigantic effort. It is a great effort that Mahlet here initiated and started. So with that being said, I want to once again to welcome everyone. I hope that you have a good show as we move forward. Thank you very much, Mahlet. Mahlet, you're muted. Come on.
Yeah, I have to be honest. We try to make it as lively as and as relatable as possible. So, at the back, my kids are watching the France versus Spain football. So, I have to mute myself every now and then. But we are here to serve. Our work is actually, even this is not enough for us to be here daily only at this time. A lot, you can't imagine, there is a lot that's happening that we feel sorry. Wow, we should have done analysis on this one, on that one. In any case, so Kwame, now this reminds me Tinubu forming this team. A year ago, you wrote an article actually on how, in general, the structural, giving a suggestion, kind of advising, let's say, the Nigerian government how Tinubu should restructure or reform the NNPC, the Nigeria's National Petroleum Corporation, and all, when when he removed the subsidies, which is harming the poor of Nigerians. Now, setting up this economic team, that's one, okay. It just reminds me of your article. Now, this formation of this team seems that it comes after Aliko Dangote's exposing, of this mafia, the local mafias who are working with the West, and how they are sabotaging and almost actually prevented the existence of his oil refinery. Now, let's us start actually the first question to, if you can tell us, what do you think about this team, which is, can we say, constituted by the president of Nigeria?
Yeah, thank you, Mallet. So I just want first of all people to understand why we are talking about Nigeria for the past let me say 5 to 10 years. Okay, let me say approximately 5 years. Nigeria has been the biggest economy, but more so, it is the country which has a lot of potential when it comes to the African continent, and of course it has a lot of energy resources. It has so much potential as a country. It's the biggest most populated country on the African continent. So this is very important. And I remember also, I think it was Mandela who said that the day Nigeria gets it, the whole African continent will get it. Actually, he did not say South Africa or any other country, but he said the day Nigeria gets it, the whole African continent will get it. And as Pan-Africanists, of course, we have huge interest in any part of the continent, and especially in areas where we will easily get a spark for rapid development and advancement in the world. And to show you that there is so much potential in Nigeria, and all Africans need to pay attention to what is going on in Nigeria, and even to play a role, all Africans have to play a role in making sure that things are going well in Nigeria. And this means also that we have to help them to have the right leadership. Okay, we have to play a role in helping Nigeria to have the right leadership. Okay, so this is where our concern for this country, or whatever you can call it, colonial enclosure, all part of Africa, this section of Africa, or this territory of Africa. This is where our concern stems from, and our passion to speak about this. And of course, as Pan-Africanists, we feel obliged, because for us, we believe solidly in a unified Africa. And so these territories, we see them as just part of a greater African continent and a greater African nation that we are talking about. And of course, Nkrumah too, our forefather, great forefather, the father of Pan-Africanism on the African continent, of course, called it a nation, called Africa a nation. Africa is a nation in itself. So Nigeria, when it is doing well, it is most possibly that the other African countries will do well. Let us go back to what you mentioned. President Tinubu, when he came to power, he came with certain policies. All right, and these policies, of course, we doubted them. Definitely, we doubted them. There was problems with these particular policies which he started implementing immediately, and of course, his coming to power also was questionable. Many people did not believe that he won the elections. Okay, of course, there is a way within which the demographics or populations are distributed within the continent itself, that some people are saying, okay, Tinubu had support within the villages, within the upcountry, upstate, and Peter Obi and others, their support was merely in the cities and town and social media. So that's what other people claim. But a lot of people, I think that Peter Obi, was the one who was most deserving to be president of the country. And of course, it was a shock to many that Tinubu got the power. But let us put that aside. Let us put that issue aside. I know that someone, of course, has spoken about the Democratic Republic of Congo. I'm seeing in the chat here, but we will come another time, of course, talk about the Democratic Republic of Congo extensively. And I agree with you because Dr. Nkrumah even himself said that Democratic Republic of Congo, if we are talking about liberating Africa, we have to liberate the Democratic Republic of Congo. It has to be central to our strategy, of liberating the African continent. We have to think about Congo because it's the heart of Africa. Now, when we go to President Tinubu, when he came to power, the conversation that immediately came into being was the removal of subsidies, especially on fuel. And the claim was that these subsidies are being misused by the rich, by certain people, and therefore they are a cost on the government. All right. And of course, Tinubu, this was, a symptom that uh, Tinubu is an implementer of neoliberal policies, all right, on the population. And that is when actually I wrote that article. And of course, there was conversation of privatizing the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, which is the NNPC, instead of looking at what the problem is, what are the structural problems. So I wrote an article and I said that Nigeria needs to address the structural issues and not just to tinker around with the economy, because the things which Tinubu has been doing is just tinkering around with the economy of Nigeria, not really touching the structural issues of the economy. Let us look at the petroleum sector, for example. This is the biggest generator of revenue for the country. All right. So Nigeria, how much does Nigeria benefit from these oil resources? And actually, the present problems within the Nigerian oil sector with the advent of the Dangote oil refinery have exposed these problems, within the Nigerian oil sector. The fact that Dangote cannot get oil to refine, and yet we have the oil is being produced in the country. So you ask who is holding this oil hostage. So it shows you that the multinational oil companies within the country now, they have control over the whole resources of the country. And the government is sort of like a servant now to these oil companies. The Nigerian people are servants to these oil companies, these multinational oil companies, because they can refuse to take the oil which they took from Nigerian soil to give it to a Nigerian oil refinery to refine. All right, they refuse to give it as raw material, and so they choose to sell it to the United States or the international market, or sell it to some other refineries across the world instead of giving it to Nigerians to use it, which belongs to them. So then this shows that there is problems. There's problems within the government itself, the government policies, itself, huge problems. All right. Tinubu's government, it shows that there's huge problems, there's gaps. And as a government, it shows also that this is not the government that you should be looking to make structural transformation within the country. All right. When you look at the team, so when you have these problems at the base, all right, as a foundation, so however much you bring together the team, regardless of which type of team you bring together, and of course, he brought together a team of very powerful people, including Dangote, who is on that team. Tony
Now,
Elumelu.
on the team, Kwame, now, will it mean that we will see a difference as opposed to now he was getting his, not only him, many leaders in Africa, their policy advice from IMF, devaluing their currency, and he did also that devaluing naira. Now versus now comparing it to this economic thing, does it mean that he's going to take advice from this team, and will they make a change as to what IMF has been advising Bola Tinubu?
So the team for it, the problem is not that the team will fail or it does not have the right, advice to give the government in Nigeria. But the problem is that now you have three players, and one of the player right now is in the dark. All right, it doesn't show themselves. You have three players. Now you will have the team which Tinubu has constituted. In the middle, you have the government, the Nigerian government itself, with Tinubu at the top. All right, and then you have the international institutions, which are the lenders and the IMF. Those ones, the imperialist, neo-colonialist institutions. Those ones, their voice is so huge that it is unimaginable. That is why you are seeing that you are having these problems within the Nigerian oil sector. That people are saying, how is it possible that that Dangote has to buy crude oil from the United States, all the way across the Atlantic from the United States, when we have crude oil which is coming from Nigerian ground. And on top of that, you have 4 oil refineries within the country. Those refineries, many Pan-Africans have been saying that is the local cartels and the international oil companies who have been sabotaging Nigerian oil refineries. 4 of them, they have not been working, or they have been, for some reason, there's a claim that these refineries are not able to produce Nigerian oil. And there's a lot of justifications by some of our intellectuals, even within the country. They come with huge reports which justify this dysfunctionality. But the whole conclusion is this: there is just 2 people. The summary of the whole problem is that there is just 2 groups, which Dangote is calling they are more dangerous than the mafias, the oil mafias. Is saying that they are more dangerous than drug cartels. It is just the international oil companies and the local mafias. And in that group of the local mafias, there's also some of our intellectuals. All right, they are within that group that they sabotage, and of course with the ruling class intellectuals, with the ruling class, which is benefiting from this, the rich people. Now, this is what the team is going to confront. So you will see that within the team itself, which has been constituted, the economic management team, which Tinubu has constituted, you will find that some of these government elements within the team itself, they have influence. They have that influence. The international oil companies may seek to influence them. Now, people like Dangote, of course, it will be difficult for him to influence him because he already has, what it takes. He has what he needs. He doesn't need that. But people like Elumelu, Tony Elumelu, who calls himself Afri-capitalist, there is a word which he invented, and he has been promoting it on LinkedIn, that we should all be Afri-capitalists. So he invented that word, but it refused to take on a life of its own, or it refused to go viral, to become popular. So people like that, he's easily influenced by the international capital and these, institutions. So it is a difficult situation because the national government, the federal government itself, most of the time has succumbed to pressure from outside, from these international cartel, the neo-colonial institutions. And that is the problem now. Now, for this team, regardless, it would have been functional. It would have been able to help Nigeria to come out of these problems. But we have, like I said, another player who is hiding in the back and who is very influential, and that is the international oil cartels and the International Monetary Fund, and of course the Western world, all of it banded up together, who are hiding, in the dark. So we are yet to watch, but of course this is our prediction. Our outlook as Pan-Africanists originally, even when you refer to the article I wrote, was the complete restructuring, not just not just what they call reform. Reforms are nothing. The oil sector in Nigeria needed complete restructuring, all right, so that the Nigerian people and the Nigerian government and the Nigerian people should have at least 60% of all the revenue that comes from the ground, every single barrel of oil. These contracts have to be renegotiated. That's number one. Number two, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation has to be run as as an entity that is meant to be an entity that is meant to be profitable. And if we cannot find a CEO across the African continent who can run the Nigerian National Oil Corporation, okay, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation to profitability, if we cannot find that CEO in Nigeria, let us find that CEO in Africa. If we cannot find that CEO in Africa, let us find that CEO across the world. Let us advertise across the world so that we can run the Nigerian National Corporation with the 4 oil refineries. And in addition, if you add that to the Dangote oil refinery, Nigeria should be the petroleum hub for the African continent. Africa should not again import, petroleum products. But now what we are seeing is the frustration instead of Dangote oil refinery, so that it will not be able to meet even the petroleum, the refined petroleum needs of Dangote as a country. And this is, becoming a huge, a huge problem. So let us wait and see. But from what we see, the problem needs to be attacked from the core, from the structural a part of it, from the foundation. So we need to attack the structure of the country and not tinker with the economy, raise interest rates, remove subsidies, and then put them back, because the subsidies were removed and put back. All right. And now what we see, devaluing of currency under the advice of the International Monetary Fund. The other day we saw a former Nigerian minister complaining, how can you devalue your currency from year to year, from year to year? And they're telling you should devalue. All right. And for someone who's not manufacturing a lot of things, devaluing a currency is disastrous. It instead increases, inflation. And we have seen this even during this meeting of the Constitution. In his speech, President Dangote, Aliko Dangote, mentioned that you can't put interest rate high like this. All right, you have to put the interest rate down. I mean, and me, sometimes I'm surprised, someone who has this smart stake within the Nigerian economy, how they do all these things without consulting him. I mean, it beats my understanding. So he's talked about the increase in interest rates, how this has spiked up the inflation within the country. So you are increasing the interest rate, but you don't have a lot of money in circulation within the country. All right. So why would you increase the interest rate? In the United States, they have increased the interest rate because they printed over $18 trillion during the COVID period. So they have to increase the interest rate. All right. Because they want to suck out some of this money, from the system. In our African countries, they never printed any money. All right. They didn't print money to give out. In the United States, they printed a lot of money and gave out free money to people during the COVID period. Our African countries, they didn't do that. And now they are raising, the same United States and the Federal Reserve in the United States is telling them to raise the interest rate. And this is causing problems. It is taking, the cost of living is becoming huge because the people, they don't have money, in these our countries, African countries. So whether the economic management team will be respected enough that its decisions will be considered, that is another issue. Because we have seen things like this in Ghana, which we will talk about, whereby there was an economic management team and it became a disaster. All right, so that remains for us to pay attention to. But originally, as Pan-Africanists, that was our advice, that there should be structural, a transformation of the economy itself.
Thank you, Kwame, really, for listing those, measures or suggestions. Hopefully, someone somehow from Nigeria will listen to this and make use of it. Now, let's go to the security issue in Nigeria, which has been really a problem for quite some time. What do you think of the security situation in the northern part of the country, and related to this economic strategy? How is this going to help the people, particularly in Niger state, in fighting against insecurity, and also to enjoy some of the economic benefits that might come from this newly set up economic team? You are muted.
So the security situation itself, I think that it is a huge problem. It is a shame that subsequent governments, have failed to solve this problem. If you look at Buhari himself, campaigned on the premise that he's going to solve the security problem. Subsequent, governments have failed to solve the security problem in Nigeria, and of course, it is a huge shame. It is a huge shame. People like Goodluck, Buhari, Tinubu is the third person. They cannot solve this. It is hard to believe that, and it is unimaginable that Nigeria does not have the capacity to pacify its territory. A country of more than 250 million people does not have the capacity to pacify its territory. I mean, of course, this is really unimaginable. The United States is around 350 million people, all right? And Nigeria is coming close to it. And with a much more smaller territory. Nigeria has a very smaller territory. So if this points to anything, it points to, incompetence, which we have already spoken about. All right. And it also goes to show, of course, the limitations of these colonial states. All right. So if a country like Nigeria, with a GDP of more than $400 billion, cannot take care of its security problems, and people are still being kidnapped, and they're talking about terrorists. I mean, this is a problem. This is a huge problem, because these are the basics. You have to make the country stable before there can be economic problem. I mean, economic progress. All right. You provide infrastructure. You make the country stable. It has to be peaceful, and then you provide the basic infrastructure, which is electricity, transportation, and communication. And that is how people will be able to build up the country and work, and then there will be economic progress. But if you cannot solve the basic issues affecting the country, like stability, security, for like years and years, for more than 30 years, all these heads of state have been coming and going, and this problem is still there. I mean, it shows you the limitations of these colonial states which were left behind. And of course, this precisely makes the case for a united African state even much more urgent, because it shows you that the colonial states have not only failed to transform Africa's economy, okay, but they have also failed when it comes to security. And of course, we can bring up the issue of Congo and the instability that is in Congo. We can bring up the issues that are in Sudan. We can bring up the Sahel, these problems which we are facing, that the Sahel states have to come together and have to kick out. So, and of course, the issue of interference from outside also comes in, because before the Sahel had security problems, before it had these problems, it was the imperialists, the neo-colonialists, who brought these problems. by the killing of and destruction of Libya as a country, as one of the most successful countries in Africa. So it shows you that the colonial state and the colonial states on the African continent have failed to live up to the expectations, and that is to provide the basics, which is stability, peace, and stability, and then providing the basic infrastructure for Africa to take off as a worthy industrial, economic powerhouse on the continent, as an industrial powerhouse on the continent, and as a competitive, territory or economic power on the African stage, and even on the international stage itself, if I may say so. This security problem is very, symptomatic of that. So to talk about the economy and the economic management team, when you have these problems uh, in the north, in the Niger state and all these, then it means that regardless of how your economic management team succeeds in the south, where you're concentrating, you're going to exacerbate the problem of income inequality, all right? Uneven growth or uneven development, because in the north there is instability. You have failed to pacify the country and stabilize the place, and now you are saying that you are concentrating on, growing the economy in the south and devaluing currency. So the system itself, I think, has to be reviewed as the political and economic system itself that is being implemented. And of course, with that, I'm talking about neoliberalism that is being implemented, that just tinkers with the economy but does not address the structural issues of the country, and does not, this tinkering is not helping the people as a population as a whole, is not helping the population as a whole to have improved lives. We are not seeing the desired social and economic upward mobility. So this is a huge problem.
Thank you, Kwame, for that. Now, moving on. Um, Now, he also spoke about increasing oil production vis-a-vis with the reform of the energy sector in Nigeria. Now, this is specifically when it comes to, of course, meeting Aliko Dangote's crude oil needs. Now, uh, is this the right way to do it?
I think that what for them they want to address, they still want to do the same thing, which is tinkering with the issues. Because Nigeria has been producing about
It's
1
like
million
about
barrels.
1 million barrel per day.
Yes,
Is that
yes.
ambitious, or is it really it can be okay?
Yeah, so it has been producing 1 million barrels per day, and that production actually has been going down somehow. And even at one point, I think Angola came to almost overtake Nigeria. I think a few months, Angola overtook Nigeria as the biggest producer in Africa this very year, and people were, commenting about it. How can Angola overtake Nigeria as the biggest oil producer in the African continent? So it is a huge concern. Now, for you to say that you want to produce about two, double the production to produce about 2 million barrels per day, it means that, of course, you have to increase the investment within the country itself. So what I see at the end of the day is that this is not going to happen. No one is going to produce 2 million barrels per day unless, Dangote himself moves into drilling and producing. Okay, he's going to move into the drilling and exploration to take blocks in Nigeria and produce and take out of the ground his own oil and give it to the refinery. That's where I see Dangote going, moving forward, because it's going to be frustrated by the incompetency in the system. And it is not that the continent, the African continent, or Nigeria itself for that matter, lacks the people. But I'll take you back to what one of the things which the late Charlie Manga said. He said that uh, India has the same competent people like China, all right? And this I just want to show you that in Nigeria, there's competent people, enough competent people. All right. The country does not lack competent people. And for that matter, the African continent does not lack competent people. But what we have is that we have a wrong system, a socio-political and economic system. The system is wrong. All right. And we have to discard it. It's the same system that discards and it alienates the competent people from serving, all right, the public, and it brings and retains the incompetent ones who are continuing to destroy things. Okay, so we need to build a new system based on African values and based on the interests of the African people. Now, Chimamanda said what he said about India when he was asked whether India would be able to emulate like Singapore or China to be able to develop rapidly. What he said is that India has some of the smartest people who are as smart as the Chinese, but because of the system in India, that what he said is that they copied the worst stupidities of the democratic system. All right, they copied all the worst systems of the Western system and they implemented it in India. That is why they are smart people, like what we see in the most of the international companies, the biggest companies. They are led by Indians. Google, all these, Microsoft, okay, Yahoo, and all these. You see that all of them are led. A lot of them are led by Indians, but at home they cannot succeed. All right, so they choose to leave because that's how smart people are. They don't want to argue too much. They don't want to do too much arguing. And so that thing, that same situation, that same scenario actually is replicated in Nigeria also. When you go around the world, you see that there's a huge number of Nigerian people and actually African people across the world who are successful in their field, but they could not thrive at home. Why? Because there's a wrong system. There's a very bad system. So this is what I see even with Dangote's case. And actually, you have to applaud Dangote regardless of what people say about him, these problems here and there, and of course, capitalist system, whatever it is. All right. But Dangote has done his part, all right, in the country to be able to support not only, his country, Nigeria, but the whole African continent. He has at least shown that Africans can also industrialize, and he has become very vocal. So what I see with him at his refinery is that he will, consequently be, he will consequently be frustrated with the system and how it is working, and he will go into exploration, oil exploration, and get his own block, or he will buy already wells which are already producing in Nigeria, because we already have corporations which are producing, and he will will take out his own oil and take it to the refinery. So he is about to set up an oil exploration company, like what we see with the Shells and BP and all these Chevrons who are already within Nigeria and taking oil and selling the crude oil. So that's what I see. That's what I envision for now.
Is that good for him to be to take part, or to participate in those things?
Yeah, I think that is good. It is good, only that it will be difficult for you to tell him to push down the price of the crude oil. And yet, of course, the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation owns about 20% of the Dangote oil refinery. But if he still has 80%, of course, it will be difficult, to have an upper hand or even to convince him otherwise. If he enters, if the Nigerian government, Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, fails to deliver the crude oil he needs to refine, then if he goes and takes the oil by himself and sets up an oil exploration company and produces his own crude oil and takes it to the refinery, it will be difficult for him to reduce the prices of oil. All right. And of course, it will still benefit the country because the country is spending huge amounts of money on importation, I think, or up to $4 billion or something. But it will still be difficult for the price to come down, to convince him to bring the price down, because you people already with your system failed to help him to achieve the objective, of stabilizing the market when you had the opportunity, because you have the leverage, you are the government, so you should be able to function, and you should be able to have more power compared to these foreigners, these foreign multinational oil companies who have taken over the country almost and made the government of the people, which was elected by the people. They have made it a beggar in the country. So, which is of course very unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kwame. So that's what we have prepared as far as this formation of economic team by Bola Tinubu is concerned with, Aliko Dangote and uh, Tony Elumelu in it. If you have any question, I'm going to go quickly scan through this chat section. If you have taken a note, Kwame, let me know. If not, I saw some useful. If you have questions, please drop it, or write it in the copy paste it, whatever, in the chat section. Yeah, seeing this, we agree. He says, nationalize all strategic resources, build the capacity required to process all those resources at home. Self-sufficiency is best to start. As AES has shown, sanctions are mere threats. Okay, OCS says the insecurity is not just incompetence, it is a deliberate policy by some northern politicians to cleanse central Nigeria and acquire their fertile land. It's intentional. Ose says also all leading political figures and business people have their money invested in the West. They only know a world where America is on top forever. They are comfortable with it and they have no aspirations. That's true. So yeah, Kwame, I think we can end it here. It's like about 42 minutes. Thank you, all of you, for engaging here, for commenting, asking. It's really important for us. As we always say, we don't take it for granted. We appreciate each and every one of you, those who have donated. Also, thank you very much. Anything is good for us. It will help us. The aim is to be on duty 24/7. That's what we want, not just to come at night and analyze or push you, just some highlights of news. No, we really want to be here full time. So, yeah, you can also share it, or you may also suggest if you have any idea that who could be interested to work with us in terms of sponsoring or whatever, African in the diaspora or Africans at home, business people who want to cooperate with us and sponsor, any idea is welcome. I will give you to say a final word and we end it here, Kwame.
Yeah, there is someone, I think Giz Geta is the one who was asking what will be the depth of Russia's influence in these countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. That maybe we'll speak on it another time. But today we wanted to focus on Nigeria. But what you should know is that these people have not been influenced by Russia to do whatever they are doing. We know that the international platforms, the imperialist platforms, have been spreading this false narrative that Africans have to be influenced by Russians before they can understand that imperialism has been killing us and has been exploiting us and has been insulting us, and it has been racist towards us and oppressing us. So that false narrative, I think we need to put it to rest once and for all. But maybe we will do a program on the influences, on the various influences of different countries in Africa. Of course, we see Russia Africa Summit, US Africa Summit, EU Africa Summit. So we will come one time and analyze for you what each of these countries want in Africa. But history, of course, is a great teacher. And if you look at history and what has been happening in the past, it shows you what each of these countries want from Africa, whether Russia, Turkey, and all these countries, because at least at one point or another, they have dabbled into the African continent. But what do they want? So we'll come another day to do an analysis on that. So I just want to say that the revolutions in Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso are not influenced by anyone, as the neo-colonial institutions have been trying to make people believe that it's because of the Russians, but it is rather the exploitation, the humiliation of the African people, that has been going on for very long. The oppression by these institutions, and it's the same thing which you are seeing in Kenya, that people are fighting back against, Western and the white supremacist oppression that has been going on, and exploitation. Okay, so I just want you to know that that is what it is. But we'll come another time and do an analysis on that, so that people can have clarity on what it is exactly, and the different forces that are playing on the African space. So we want to thank you very much, and as Mahlet has said, we thank you for being part of this journey which we are embarked on, of conscientizing our people, bring consciousness to our people, political consciousness, economic consciousness, but most especially the Pan-African consciousness, whereby we are working for the unification of the African continent and the African people globally into one state, just like what our ancestors, envisioned in Nkrumah, Marcus Garvey, George Padmore, Malcolm X, and all of them, whatever they envisioned, that is what we stand for as a people. So you have to support us. You have to support this platform, even if you want, even if you don't want, you have to support the platform because it is for the interest of the African people. Thank you very much for being part of this today, and we'll catch you another time.
I am muted. Let me just do this. Was it Mikey Simba? You said news in CAR. What is there anything happening in Central Africa Republic? That's why we love the family here. You also bring the topic. You can suggest. I'm not aware of. I don't know, but we can look at it. Yeah, we will be here again tomorrow. Thanks, and it's bye bye from us. Have a good evening. Have a good day. Ciao. We'll see you next time. Thank you.